All right, thank you, Sharita, and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. It was great to start to get to know many of you on the webinar we had just a couple of weeks ago about the JPEID tool, and looking forward to talking more about the Grantee reporting process. So we can begin with introductions. I see many of you have already started to type in your PHA that you represent and where you're from into the chat. So I encourage you to go ahead and do that. Tell us who you are, what PHA you're from, maybe what role you have on the grant, and what cohort you're in. So just let us know who's here. So I'll let you all do that while I turn it over to Lee for just some brief introductory points before I move on with our presentation.
Great. Thank you, Laura. And thank you, everybody, for joining us again today for another webinar on Jobs Plus. We really appreciate you setting aside the time to do this and to gather with us. As we've said before, we're really excited to be getting back together with you on data and to have ICF on board with us. And to be getting caught up on our data collection. We appreciate you all having waited very patiently while we have gone through this transition period with our TA provider. And now we're just really excited to get caught up and to move forward with Jobs Plus data and how it can really help us in best implementing the program. One reminder, and you'll hear this again throughout the presentation today, is that new email address that is out there, ICF, and we have shared it. It's jobsplusreporting@icf.com. And if you have a question where you need some data reporting TA support, please use this email, and that's how you can reach the ICF team and share whatever question or support that you need. Many folks have already been making good use of that when they've had questions about the JPEID tool. So that's great. So keep doing that with your Jobs Plus reporting questions as well. The other reminder we just wanted to mention, and we'll talk a bit more about this as we go forward in today's presentation, but we want to bring attention back to, Tableau, and that Tableau is the data system for the Jobs Plus program. And given this juncture point where we are, we really want to move forward and leverage that tool that we have to really help in the data analysis of Jobs Plus, really leverage the visualization capabilities that it has to help you all as grantees really best learn about what's working in your programs, maybe something that needs adjustment, and really have that data analysis to help with program implementation. So again, just to call your attention to that, we'll be looking at what Tableau looks like. We know many of you are familiar with data and have maybe you're a prior grantee or have just done the data reporting for several years now. And we also have new grantees with us as well who are newer to this process. So we look forward to working with everyone and really getting on a great start as we catch up on our data submission. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Laura.
Great, thank you, Lee. And in that time, I see you, many of you have taken some time to let us know who's on the line. So I see, I'll call out a few of you. I see Philadelphia and Lowell and Houston, Akron, and Chesapeake and Jacksonville and Durham. Thanks everybody for joining. I'm sure there's many, many more of you. Brunswick and Denver and LA and Roanoke. So appreciate everybody who's on the line, and hopefully this will be helpful to you. I'll also mention that I am representing ICF today for the presentation, but as many of you probably have learned or are starting to learn, we've got a team of folks to provide PA to you for reporting. So you may be working with myself, you may be assigned to Allie Payton or Catherine Au as your direct PA provider for reporting. We've also got Con Shamus on the line to support with the JPEID, as well as my colleagues Allie Whiteneck and Danielle Shiralus, who you'll maybe hear a little bit more from at a later point. So just want to introduce the team and start getting used to those names because we are here to help you. And before we move on, let's do just a quick icebreaker question to help get your minds thinking, get your minds on the data, and really focused on your jobs plus data. So if you wouldn't mind, think back to the data reporting you've done and go ahead and type into the chat, if you are so inspired, what is one thing that you've learned or changed or done differently based on your jobs plus data so far? So what's something that you've learned or something that the data has told you that has made you do something differently? So I'll give you a minute to think about that a little bit and type something into the chat if you are so inspired. So while you do that, as people type in, we'll come back to that and see kind of what you guys are thinking on that front. Meanwhile, let's talk through today's agenda. So we will do some reminders about how to access reporting TA. Lee has already started to mention that about the new Jobs Plus reporting email address. We'll remind you about that. We'll give you an overview of what the reporting process will look like for this quarter, at least. We will talk about the Jobs Plus quarterly data collection survey. We will give you a little preview of what that survey will look like. We will talk about the Jobs Plus quarterly reporting system, which is the dashboards on Tableau Public. We'll give you a little preview of what those look like, a reminder for those of you who have been using them. And then we'll talk about next steps, and then we will leave some time at the end for questions. So just as a reminder, if you have questions as we go, feel free to type them into the chat, and then I will try to answer them if I can during the call. And then when we get to the Q&A portion at the end, we will allow folks to be able to unmute themselves and ask the question verbally as well. So we can have a little bit of a conversation at that point. So now I see folks have provided some thoughts about what they have learned or changed or done differently as a result of their data already. So I see provided more mental health services, I imagine, more in-person contact with residents for recruitment and re-engagement, have coaches track each person they talk to each month. So good answers, and just want to kind of get you thinking about what kinds of things the data can tell us about your programs. I'm seeing from Katie, it helps to see how other agencies are doing on metrics. So if you feel like you're low on a number and see that you're in line, then you don't need to worry so much. So that kind of comparative analysis is a good thing as well. So all good points. We will talk more about many of those today and as we move forward with data collection and reporting. So a few reminders about reporting TA. I'll move right through this slide. And again, as we said, Jobs Plus reporting at ICF.com. That is where you will reach the ICF team for technical assistance related to reporting. So it's a central email account for any TA requests that you have. We will also be sending outgoing correspondence about information about reporting, information about upcoming training calls like this one, and that kind of thing. So keep an eye out, get to know this email address, and use it as much as you need to. So be sure if this is a new email address to you, make sure if you're not getting something, check your spam. Make sure that you have us set as a trusted email account in your Outlook, because that way we will make sure that our information gets to you and where it needs to go. Again, you can use it for data reporting related support, and that is including support for the JPEID tool. So the account is monitored by the three of us on the ICF team who are the direct TA providers. But a reminder to always, when you're reaching out to us, copy your HUD grant manager and Lee and Isaac just so that they can kind of keep track of what's going on. And if there's any programmatic questions, we can engage them, and they have a good sense of status on what kind of help you need, and we can all work together to provide that. And then, of course, just a reminder that there is also Jobs Plus at HUD.gov. That is how you would reach the HUD program office for more programmatic related matters. So just a reminder about all of that. And just another quick reminder, if you're not clear exactly who your assigned ICFTA provider is, here is that list. Allie will be working directly with cohorts 4 and 5. Catherine will work with cohorts 6 and 8, and I will support cohort 7. So just so you know, you can reach us all through Jobs Plus reporting at ICF.com, but you'll know who you'll be working and interacting with when you get emails from us. So let me move on to an overview of what the reporting process for this upcoming quarter will look like. As you know, this involves catching up a little bit. So catching up on reporting for both the fourth quarter of last year as well as the first quarter of this year. So that is going to happen pretty imminently. I hope and suspect that all of you have been anxiously waiting to and holding on to your data in hopes of being able to get that submitted. So lucky for you, you will be able to do that in short order. We will be providing you with a link to the survey, hopefully by the end of this week. And so that way you can get going. You'll be able to start getting your data into the online data collection survey. I do see a question in there from Nick about these webinars being available, recordings. Yes, so the JPEID tool webinar that we held, that recording will be available. It was our very first webinar under this, so we don't have that available quite yet, but my understanding it should be available by the end of the week for you to take a look at that if you missed it, or if you just want to review and get a refresher. And then of course this webinar will also be available, and those will be posted to, there'll be a link on the HUD Exchange where you can access recordings for those webinars as well as the slides. So stay tuned for that, and we will be sending an email out when those are available. So just kind of an overview of this reporting process. You will complete your survey. I'll tell you a little bit more about that shortly. And then by the middle of June, the ICF team will be doing data cleanup and QC, and we'll be doing follow-up with you guys to, fill in gaps, see if there are any anomalies we see or anything that we have questions about. There is, like we already know, a cohort, all cohort super call that'll be led by HUD, sort of middle to late June on the 22nd. And then, throughout the month of June, we'll be doing all that data cleanup. And by the end of June, we should have produced a updated set of Tableau dashboards for you. And then at some point in July, we will hold a Grantee data analysis training TA call, where we'll be talking more about the data, looking into it, what can we learn from it, and really digging into what that data looks like now that you've had a chance to be able to report that. And then, because we're sort of in catch-up mode, right immediately, starting in July, you will receive a link to the Q2 2023 survey so that you can collect your Q2 data. At that point, we'll get on a little bit more of a regular schedule where things will be a little bit less condensed in terms of timing, and we'll be able to get on a schedule that will be more predictable from quarter to quarter. So just a reminder, this upcoming reporting that you'll be doing starting, right at the end of May through June, this is for cohorts 4 through 7. Cohort 8 is going to come on board in terms of reporting a little bit later this year. So moving forward, we'll talk a little bit about the survey and what you guys can expect, and then I'll show you, give you a glimpse of what it looks like. That way you'll know what to expect when you get it. So some overview and background. I know there have been several different survey tools that have been used over the years. This upcoming survey will come to you via a SurveyMonkey link. And so we will be sending that link out via the Jobs Plus reporting at ICF.com email address. Some details on that. We'll want you to designate one person within your agency to complete and submit that survey. So I think, as has been done in the past, the link to the survey will be sent to who we have on file as the Jobs Plus coordinator. If you want that link to be filled out, or if you want that survey to be filled out by someone other than the Jobs Plus coordinator, email us and let us know. You can, if you are the Jobs Plus coordinator and you receive the link to the survey, but you want someone else to serve in the main role of completing and submitting the survey, you can forward that link to the correct person to complete the survey. But I'll put in kind of a tip here, or a best practice is really to avoid confusion and potential data quality issues. I recommend that you talk with your whole team who's involved in your Jobs Plus grant in advance. Designate who that single person who is going to complete the survey will be. Either it's the Jobs Plus coordinator who's going to receive the link, or somebody else, and just make sure everybody's on the same page about who is responsible for completing and submitting that survey. So everybody will get the same link, but what you'll need to do, and I'll show you this when we look at the survey, is the very first question on the first page will be a drop down, and you will choose your PHA name. That way we can make sure that your data is associated with your agency. This is a unique one because you actually are being required to submit data for 2 separate quarters as a way to kind of get caught up. So you'll see in a moment when I show you, but this survey will ask you to enter data for both the period that ends December 31st, 2022, as well as the period that ends March 31st, 2023. So it should be clear to you when you see the survey how that will work. And we think it will be easier for you to only have to submit a single survey with both data from both quarters in it. But if you need any assistance, do let us know, and we're happy to help. Do note that the survey length is set so that the person who is responsible for entering the data and submitting the survey can do so in multiple sessions. So you don't have to do it all in one sitting. You can go back to the survey, you can update the data, and you can keep going back as many times as you need to. Your data will be saved until you hit done. At the very last button, if you hit the submit or done, at that point your data is submitted and you won't be able to return back to the survey. But of course, if you find that you got something wrong or you need to change something, do let us know and we can work with you on the back end. And I'll make a point that both of those features, where you can go, enter data in multiple sessions and you can return to the survey and update if you need to, you should be using the same device each time. So if you started the survey on your laptop, you'll want to keep working in the survey using your laptop, and then you can go back to it as many times. So don't switch from a laptop to an iPad back to a laptop. That might mess up some of the data that you've entered. So Just some details on that. For now, the metrics that you will be submitting are unchanged. So the questions that you see in the survey are what you've been seeing in the most reporting cycle that you did. I believe that was last fall. So just on your screen, you see the general categories of the questions. So it should be very clear to you. These should be the same questions that you've been working with over time. There will be more to come about potential changes to some of the survey questions. And so just stay tuned for that. And you'll be able to participate in discussions about those changes and to inform any potential changes. But know that that's not going to happen, at least for this reporting cycle. So I do see a question in the chat about having access to Q3 of 2022. So I think that's getting access to the data that you submitted. And I think we can certainly work with you to figure out how to get you access to that data if you need it. So if you do need access, let us know, send us an email, and we can work with you to figure that out. Just keep moving us along. Want to highlight some best practices and recommendations we have for you for collecting your data and submitting your survey. So actually the question about getting access to past data is a good segue there. We recommend that you have a place where you are collecting all of your data and getting it ready for the survey somewhere outside of the online survey. So several reasons for this. But we really recommend that you, even though you can go back to the survey and fill it out in multiple settings, you may be collecting data from various people on your team. We recommend that you have a place where you keep all of your data in an organized way outside of the online survey, so that when it comes time to fill out the survey, you've already got everything organized, you've got it ready, and it's a simple data entry exercise. So this allows you to keep a record of your data. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. It also means, there's always the chance that there's, the online survey, you lose your internet connection all of a sudden, and something happens that you don't expect. And having your data collected already will protect you from losing anything if there are any unexpected glitches that might come about. I will note that this survey that we're currently using does not contain a function where you, the survey respondent, are able to export a PDF of your data. But if you do, again, collect your data, keep it outside of the system and before you enter it. But if you do need a copy of the data that you've submitted, send us an email and we can pull that for you. A couple of warnings, reminders, and caveats are, remember that you're going to be submitting your data in the survey, and then we are going to be doing a QC process. We're reviewing the data, we're taking a look at it, we're filling in gaps, we're asking questions about things that maybe don't look quite right, and potentially making changes as a result. So even though you're keeping a record of everything that you've submitted outside of the online survey, remember that those records, as well as if you request an export of the data from us, those are not going to reflect any updates that are made as a result of the QC process. So just always something to keep in mind, that data that you have in hand may not be the end all be all of your data, especially if there are changes that need to take place. And then a reminder, we mentioned this already earlier in the call, the Tableau data visualization. So the dashboards are the official data system and record of data for Jobs Plus. So that is where your data lives, right? So the survey tool is really just the means of submitting the data so that it can be QC'd and finalized. The official final data will live in Tableau, and you will have access to that data. We can kind of make sure that you know how to get what you need from those Tableau dashboards once all the data is finalized and QC'd and added to the dashboard. So just a reminder there, we really want to emphasize that Tableau is where you get access to your data after it's submitted and after it's QC'd. So next up, a few more best practices. Again,
Laura, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I see a question just to sort of finish that point you were just making, a question that's in the chat. It might be a good moment to answer that one. That will we be sent a final version of the data submitted to HUD after QC? And I would say, just to further the point Laura was going over, what grantees then can do once the data is finalized in Tableau, you go to Tableau, and that's where you get your final data, can look at what number you submitted for a particular question, so on and so forth.
Exactly, right. Thank you, Lee. And just to continue with that point, the other question from Tanya about will the data from previous quarters be in Tableau? The answer is yes. So the Tableau will pick up right where you guys left off. And so that's really, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but really the beauty of having this data in Tableau is it allows you to look at data over time. It allows you to look at, go in and choose what reporting quarter you want to see your data from, and really lets you drill down to that. And so, yeah, so that'll all be there for you once this next round of data is all QC'd. Will we have the ability to download the raw quantitative data from Tableau? I'm not sure, and we'll get into a little bit more of that, but we'll look into that. And if not, the data, we can make that the raw data available to you. Yeah. So just a few additional survey best practices. We already mentioned this. Pick a data lead, someone who is kind of the main point person for managing the data collection and getting the data entered into the online survey and submitting the survey. I think for most of you who are already familiar with the survey questions, just wanted to highlight some things to be aware of that will lead to good quality data. So be sure that when the question is asking for a number, you provide a number. When the question is asking for a percentage, you provide a percentage. Make sure you're, especially in this first go around where you are collecting data and reporting data for 2 quarters, make sure that you're entering Q4 data in the Q4 fields and Q1 data in the Q1 fields. I can see how it might be a little bit easy to get confused, but we think having it all in one survey will help you keep track of that. Pay attention to whether you're reporting a number versus a total across the whole grant versus an unduplicated total. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then I think there are some questions that really ask for a snapshot as of the last day of the reporting quarter versus a total number of something or someone over a designated time period. So just be aware of those kinds of differences among the questions. And then we won't go into too much detail about this, but I did want to provide a reminder about calculating unduplicated totals. So as you know, some of the questions do ask for both a number within the reporting period as well as an unduplicated total across the whole grant period. So with an unduplicated total, you'll want each resident to only be counted once, even if they receive multiple services or the same service on multiple occasions. So here is an example of what that looks like. I think you, if you've done this before, you should be familiar with how to do this. But, and of course, this is a pretty simplified example. But, you know, if, for example, over the whole grant period, there were 5 people that met with a case manager, but 3 of those 5 did this more than in more than one quarter. So you see, for example, Abe met with a case manager in quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3. So this shows how in quarter 1, we've got 3 people who met with a case manager, Abe, Beatrice, and Cynthia. And then in quarter 2, we've only got 1 new person who met with a case manager. That's Daniel. So we add over the course of, you know, the whole grant, now we're up to 4 different people. And then as you can see in quarter 3, we added only 1 additional new person, which is Erica. So across the 3 quarters, we have, in quarter 1, we've got 3 people that met with a case manager. In quarter 2, we've got 3, and in quarter 3, we've got 4. But over the course of the 3 quarters, we only have 5 discrete, unduplicated people. So that would be Abe, Beatrice, Cynthia, Daniel, and Erica. So just wanted to remind folks of that, clarify, and make sure that everybody is clear on how to calculate those unduplicated totals. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and do a very quick screen share. I will show you what the survey looks like. It's very, very simple and I hope straightforward, but I just want to give you kind of a preview of what it looks like so that it doesn't look foreign or different to you when you get it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me a second. You will see when you click on the survey link, you will come to a page, as I mentioned, where you will be asked to select your PHA from the drop down below. So you all should be in there. If you're not there, send us a note, let us know, but you should be. And once you do that, we're going to be ICF Regional Housing Authority. This is just our test for today. You'll see that there's a progress tracker to give you a sense of how far along or how far into the survey you are. And we click next, and it's hopefully pretty self-explanatory. I will show you what it looks like now that we are collecting data for, in this particular quarter, 2 quarters worth of data. So we try to be as clear as possible. For every question, you will be asked to provide at least 2 data points. 1, in this case, for this first group of questions, 1 for October 1st through December 31st, and 1 from January 1st to March 31st. So for each of those, you'll want to fill out the correct amount. Do note that sometimes we've given some additional information that may be helpful to you for figuring out what you should be reporting or how to do the calculation. And you will simply move through the survey. When we get a little bit further down into the survey, this is where we end up having to provide more than only 2 data points for each one. So for example, number of jobs plus events, you will provide the number for that reporting quarter. So October 1st through December 31st. You will also provide the total through through December 31st for that grant, or for that, yeah. So, and then again, you'll look at January 1st to March 31st, and then you will provide the total all the way through the end of Q1. So you'll note in those cases, and then moving a little further down, you're asked to provide both, as we just discussed, the number of participants for that quarter, as well as the unduplicated total from the beginning of the grant through the end of the quarter. So we've tried to be very clear about what we're asking for in which field, but if you have any questions, send us a note. And then it gets even a little bit more fun as we continue to move through the survey, where, for example, the set of questions where you're asked, for example, the number of participants enrolled in a high school equivalency program. You'll report for each quarter the total number of participants for whom this need has been identified through the end of the quarter, the total number who have enrolled in that quarter, and then the unduplicated total through the end of the quarter. So you'll report that, and then you will start all over again, looking at Q1 and do the same thing. So that is pretty much the extent of how this survey works. As you move forward, you likely also remember that there are a series of narrative questions that you'll answer. And so let's move forward to those. So here, and please don't mind my little dummy answers here to fill in, but these will be on a series of pages broken out by topic. And for these, we didn't provide a separate field for each quarter, but we do ask you for each of these narrative questions to please try to address this question for the period of October 1st through December 31st. And then also in a separate paragraph within this field, address that question for January 1st through March 31st. So you'll have a little bit more flexibility here, but please do try to provide two separate short paragraphs with your answers for each of these questions. So continue to move through the narrative portion, and then when you're all done, we get to the very last question, question 58, and then you hit done, and your answers are registered, and we will begin reviewing those for the QC process and making sure that everything looks good from our end. And of course, we'll reach out to you if we have any questions. So with that, I'm going to stop the screen share and go back to our PowerPoint. And let's see if we have any questions. So I do see a question from Katie about, since both quarters are on the same survey, you have until the end of June to complete. So our hope is that you will be able to complete this full survey by June 12th. We know that that's a quick, a fairly quick turnaround. We think, given that you hopefully, the two quarters have been done for a little while now, that you have that data available to you and in hand. And we do hope that we do expect that in the future, once we're caught up and you guys have, gotten caught up, that when we go into reporting for Q2, you'll have the timeline will be a little bit less condensed, and we'll be able to give you a little bit more time to complete the survey. So I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about the data QC process. So again, the way this is going to look is you will submit your data via the survey tool. we, the ICF team, will do a data QC process, and I'll get into a little bit more about what that looks like in a moment. From there, we will finalize the Tableau dashboards with the new set of data. And then that data will be made available to you in Tableau. And then we will see what we can do to learn from, analyze that data, learn from it, and, really take a deep dive into what that data looks like. So the data QC process, just to give you a sense of what we're really looking for there, similar to the kinds of things I flagged for you guys to pay attention to when you're gathering and submitting data, we'll be looking for those as well. We hope that you will have, paid attention to these things and really, try to get your data as clean and clear as possible beforehand, but we will be looking for, are there any holes in the data? Are there any questions you skipped? We can look into whether that was unintentional, we skipped a question, or whether you don't have data for that for some reason or something like that. Does anything seem off? Does it seem misreported? For example, did you submit a number in the percentage field or something like that? Simple checks about if it's a percentage, are you submitting something over 100? That might be a red flag that something is off. Comparative populations, when sometimes you're expected to report total residents versus youth versus residents who did something. So we'll be kind of taking a look at that to make sure that everything sort of fits together and seems right. We'll take a look at, for example, when you're reporting unduplicated totals, you'll want those would be greater than or equal to the number reported for the current period. So if you're saying that 3 people did something this period, but the unduplicated total is 2, that might, we might have some questions about that. That might be true, but, we just want to take a look and make sure that we're understanding and that you did that check to make sure that you've got it right. And then, as we're moving into the Tableau dashboards, we'll be able to look at, are there any visible anomalies across quarters? So if you're going, if I'm looking at data on a given question across quarters and it's going up, and then you have a big dip, that might be, something that we'll want to look at to make sure that is, in fact, what is happening. So next, we will talk about the Jobs Plus quarterly reporting system. So again, these are the dashboards in Tableau Public. This is your primary source for data, your primary tool for looking at the data. And I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what that is for those of you who aren't as familiar with Tableau, why we use it, why it's important, and give you a little bit of background on it. So an overview of what these dashboards are. So I think for those of you who are less familiar with this, know that, when we're referring to dashboards, we're referring to visualizations. They're kind of one and the same. So it's the view that you have of a given set of data that allows you to manipulate and dig in and really kind of work with the data. So those are, if you hear us talking about dashboards, if you hear us talking about Tableau, if you hear us talking about visualizations, we're kind of meaning the same thing. So again, this is the Tableau visualizations are the official data system and record of data for Jobs Plus. So again, just a reminder, the survey tool is really just the means of getting that data submitted and QC'd and finalized. So what is Tableau and why do we use it? So Tableau is the platform that the visualizations live on. So it's a data visualization platform. It is designed to essentially show data visually. It allows a user to see and understand the data. And it also allows the users to kind of interact with the data so that they can really sort of drill down and answer the questions that they want to answer. So it's a way to show it visually and really, rather than just looking at flat, data in tabular format, it really helps the user understand better what the data actually means and interpret it. So the first part of that is it allows the user to see and understand the data visually. So you can use views and filters to be able to see the data in a way that could help you answer key questions about your program implementation, observe trends over time, identify anomalies, and just kind of better understand what the data is telling you. And from there, you can then use your understanding to make informed decisions about what you're doing. You can identify challenges before they can become problems. You can understand what works. You can measure your effectiveness. You can track your project progress and really, ultimately improve the outcomes for your residents. So that's kind of a short snapshot of what Tableau is and why we use, or what data visualizations in general are, and why we would use them for Jobs Plus. So with that, I'll pause and I'll invite Lee if you have any other insights or information about this and want to just kind of reinforce the importance of why we use Tableau for Jobs Plus, feel free to chime in.
Thank you, Laura. I think you did a great job sort of giving an overview on that. We know that we've used Tableau, the prior sort of private version for a long time. And just given, new grantees and new staff, we wanted to take a moment to just sort of focus back in on that, because we really want to make sure that we can best leverage this tool and this resource that is built into the program. And so we do, as you all are getting back into the data, and we're all getting back into the data, kind of want to work together, really use Tableau as that tool that it's intended to be. So again, welcome your questions on this and the reporting and any comments and thoughts you have about that. Laura, do you want me to mention the super call, or we can hold on that for a moment till?
Yeah, we will we have a slide about what's next and what's coming up, so we can talk about that at that point. So
great, thank you.
Right, so I will piggyback off of something that we just mentioned. You guys have been using Tableau for a while. With this new, with our new support here, we will be moving or have moved the dashboard into Tableau Public. This will not change much for you, the user. The main thing that it will change is that now, I think previously you needed a username and a login to be able to access the data. Now you can access that data via a direct link. So you click on a link and you can bookmark that link, and it'll be right there for you without any sort of username or login required. I will mention and hopefully kind of alleviate any concerns or fears. Moving the dashboards onto Tableau Public does mean what you think it means. It means that they are available and visible to an external audience. However, you will have a direct link to the dashboard, right? So we will provide that to you. You will be able to bookmark it. You'll be able to access it. Anyone without a direct link to the Jobs Plus dashboards would really, really, really have to want to find it to be able to. So they would have to kind of go looking for it in the sea of dashboards that are available in Tableau Public. And just for context, just to reinforce this point, I searched this morning. There are approximately 7 million visualizations available on Tableau Public. So what this means is anyone with the link to the Jobs Plus Tableau dashboards will be able to access it very, very easily. Anyone without the link would have a pretty tough time finding it. So I hope that alleviates any fears about that data being out there and in public. Do note that this will be the same as when you had access before. Anyone who is a user, so anyone who is not an administrator, so that's us, ICF, you'll be able to view the visualizations, you'll be able to interact with them, and some of that data is available in kind of a tabular format within the visualizations, but no external users would be able to download the full data set. So even if an external user not associated with Jobs Plus came across them, they wouldn't be able to access your, very detailed external data. But as I said, if you need access to that data, we can provide that to you. Also, a note about QC and when you'll be able to see the data in Tableau. As I mentioned, I sort of talked a little bit about what that QC process will look like. I would say the first part of the QC process, the part where we're looking for holes in the data, where we're looking at, does it make sense? Most of that will happen from the survey export before the data gets added into Tableau. But then there will be a point within that QC process where we will move the data into Tableau, and then we'll be doing further QC on it. So when we start needing to look for, are there any anomalies across quarters? Are there any strange spikes or dips that we might want to look into? The way to see that will be in Tableau. So we will move that into Tableau before the QC process is final. And then once the QC is completed, we would then notify you, hey, the data is officially final, and now is the time that you could go in and review it and analyze it and see what you can learn. So I think that the bottom line here is, until you've heard from us that the QC is complete, I wouldn't go digging too much into your data in Tableau until we can verify that, yep, everything looks good, everything's clean, and we've tied up as many loose ends as we can. So from there, I am going to, this is just kind of a snapshot. If you've used Tableau, this probably looks familiar to you. This is kind of the navigation page where you could, select from the different visualizations that are available to you. So from here, you can see all kinds of things. You can see a snapshot data on enrollment and employment over the life of a grant. You can see data compared with goals for your individual site. You can see trends in key indicators over the grant period for a whole cohort if you'd like. You can see all the data that's reported in each quarter across a grant period for each grantee. You can see, performance for a site by reporting period against the average within the cohort. So those are just some of the things that you might be able to look at. But as we'll see, there's a whole variety of questions that you might be able to answer by digging into this Tableau data. So with that, looks like I'm going to have to do a little bit of reconnecting. It looks like I timed out a little bit, but I think we can do that as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to just show you a glimpse of each of these individual dashboards and talk just very, very briefly about some of the things you can do with them. This should be kind of a refresher for many of you. And then once you have access to, with updated data, when you report your new data, we can go into more detail. Do note that right now, we're not looking at the data itself at this point, because if you recall, the dashboards are only updated through the end of the third quarter last year. But so really what my goal here is not to really look at the data itself, but to just show you the functionality and how you access these. As you'll see, you probably remember, these offer a lot of comparison data between grants, right? So, you know, just a reminder, and I know at least one of you mentioned that sometimes this can be helpful. But do remember, this is a tool for learning about your data and your programs. So, you know, I'm still just learning about what you all are doing, but I'm sure, as with any data for any program like this, every site, every program is different. And so just remember that this is a tool. It's designed to help you see what you're doing, where you might need to make changes, and even like what you might learn from your peers. So just, I wanted to make that point, make sure, you know, remind folks to feel comfortable that this data is, it's a tool for learning. So even when there's comparison data, you should feel comfortable having that. So with that, let me share my screen again. And I'll mention I won't be able to see the chat while I'm sharing, but as soon as I'm done, I will come back to the chat and we can answer any questions that came through while I was presenting. So hopefully you can see the first dashboard on the list. And that is the, what do we call this one? This is the snapshot view for HUD. And so really to give you a sense of all the things that Tableau can do. This is, let's see, I can see, there we go. This is data on enrollment and employment for all grantees, all cohorts, but it also does allow you to filter. You can filter by all grantees within a cohort, or you can filter by individual grantees. So you can really use these drop-down boxes to really narrow in on what it is you want to learn, right? So you could pick you could view yourself, you could view yourself and others in your cohort. And this really gives you a snapshot of where things are at. So, or you can, you know, something that HUD might be interested in is a view of everything for all of the grants. So this is sort of the roll up of all of the information into the kind of highest level across all grants. So that may be a useful one for you. The next one, and I hope it is okay. I did see someone on the line from Roanoke. I know, so as not to call any specific grants out, we are showing individual grant data from a cohort 1 grant. So of course, this grant is long completed, but shout out to Roanoke for, you know, having some good, clean, complete data that we can show as an example. So this again is cohort 1 Roanoke grant data. So this is the the individual sites. And let's see. Reconnect here. Bear with me. So here we go. So again, this is if you want to know about your site specifically, you'll get to see information about individuals assessed, individuals enrolled in JPEID, enrollment rate, etc., for a single grantee. So you'll also see the comparison against the annual goals, and that is that kind of dark red horizontal line throughout. So that gives you another sense of kind of where you're at and how things are going. Next one up is the cross-cutting displays. So again, you can, this one it will show, this is more at the cohort level. So you can see all, you know, all grants within a cohort. Again, we're focused on cohort 1 because those folks are done and gone. You can, choose between different indicators and kind of see where things are at across time for an individual indicator. So again, bear with me with this reconnect. You can choose this drop down and you can see maybe you're most interested in current work-able residents who have been assessed. So as you see, when you change the indicator, your data changes accordingly, and you can really dig in and see. And then of course, you can switch back and forth in cohorts if you want to see or you can hover and kind of see your data over the course of time. The next one is the individual site tables. And so this is where, you're looking more at data in a tabular format, like you might expect in Excel, but it produces it in a kind of a nice looking way to help you better understand. Again, we're looking at Roanoke cohort 1, and really you can see now you can really look across your data across time and be able to see the changes over time. So this looks out most of the key metrics that you'll be reporting.
Is there something else I can help with?
Sorry about that. And then we move on to the individual site graphs. And so similar to what we just saw, this is for a particular time frame. So you can select whatever quarter you'd like to see. And this will give you your data in more of a tabular format as well as in a graph. And so here is where I think you can then select one of the categories of indicators, and it'll allow you to zoom in, learn more, and be able to look at that in a little bit more detail. There we go. So here is where if you want to learn more about assistance, you'll zoom in on this and it'll give you by indicator, you'll be able to look in much more detail at your data in a graphical way. We're almost through. We will move on to the comparison tables. So again, this is where you can actually look at data comparatively across grants. So you can look by cohort. So if you want to, focus on, again, look at cohort 1. You can kind of by metric within the category, you can really see where you're at, what numbers you are reporting compared with your colleagues in your cohort. And again, of course, with the caveat that everybody's project is different. Everybody's doing something a little bit different, so your numbers may vary. And then last but not least is the comparison graph. So you can really look at a single category, and then you can look across by cohort or as an individual grant. I think the value of this table really is to be able to look across grants, at least within your cohort. You have the option to look at data for all cohorts, but as you might expect, your graphs get a little bit small and more difficult to interpret. So on this one, you may want to look at a single cohort or even a single grant. And then you can choose your category and learn how things are going based on the different categories of reporting. So that is my very quick overview and reminder and refresher about the Tableau dashboard. So I am going to stop sharing. And we're going to go back to our PowerPoint. And we are going to move on. So again, that was our Tableau dashboard preview. Now we are going to move on to what's next. So I mentioned a little bit about this early in that kind of process flow chart that I showed you. You're going to get an email from us with the to confirm the list of survey participants or survey recipients. So a reminder, one person per PHA should fill out and submit the survey. We will provide the survey link, so you have that in hand and can get started on that right away. We'd like to have those surveys completed by June 12th. We will, of course, be following up with folks as needed to really encourage you guys to get those in there, and then, of course, review and finalize and see the data. I mentioned the all cohort super call on June 22nd, which in just a moment we'll have Lee tell you a little bit more about what to expect for that. And then an upcoming grantee data analysis training TA call sometime in July, in early July, where we'll analyze and interpret the data and really kind of see what we can learn from it. So with that, Lee, a few more words, if you would like to provide on the all cohort super call would be great.
No, that's great. Thank you, Laura. And before I speak about that, just one other thing about the June 12th due date we're asking for. We were asking that too, just with the understanding that, you know, we've understood grantees to be very kindly holding on to the data they've already collected for those 2 quarters. So hoping this to be really a matter of entering the data into the survey tool now that it's available and can be submitted to ICF to, you know, further work with. So that's sort of the background behind that that due date. You know, if you have questions, let us know. But appreciate your all's efforts on that, trying to get us all back on track. And then, as Laura mentioned, you all should have on your calendars on June 22nd, another one of really, I guess, the second one now of what we're calling the all cohort super calls. And as we've mentioned in our first super call, we really want to use that time. We gather every other month and use that time to do peer sharing, but also to, you know, share and talk about larger programmatic issues for Jobs Plus. And in that vein, you know, we think it's a great space to talk more about data, you know, for in the global view, as appropriate, you know, as we go on through the program. So while the 2 quarters that y'all are catching up on right now are not going to be fully done QC'd, you know, on June 22nd, we do want to go ahead and talk to you all separately but related about a couple items with Jobs Plus metrics. As Laura mentioned, you know, what we anticipate, and we'll provide you all more data before that June 22nd meeting. You know, we want to invite grantees to think a little bit about the questions that are in the Jobs Plus data set, you know, basically the metrics, you know, what is it that we track? And think about, you know, are there any that maybe could be streamlined? Maybe there's one that you all have not found pertinent to the work you're doing. You know, let me caveat that with, you know, we are not seeking to do a big reboot on the Jobs Plus metrics and data that we collect. You know, on the whole, we think it's sound and in a good place, but we do think that where we are a few years into the program, there might be, you know, a couple or a few metrics or questions that we want to take a look at again. And also with that, anything that maybe needs a little more clarification. So I'll go ahead, throw that out there, invite you all to be thinking about that as you're typing in and submitting your data for the last 2 quarters. And just, we will be giving you more info in advance on that, but just wanted to go ahead and put that on your minds to be thinking a little bit, because in the coming future quarters, it might be something we refine a little bit in the set of questions. And also just, you know, kind of any other questions, like I know the question about the raw data came up earlier in this session. You know, maybe it's something we want to take a look at. Is there a certain kind of feature in Tableau or a report that we might want to adjust to be a little more user-friendly? Maybe, you know, cover a different piece of information, you know, that sort of thing, to, again, where we are Jobs Plus today, be like hopefully the most effective kind of data system we can use. So keep those couple things in mind. We'll also probably take that chance just to get on your all's radars about, now the prior grantees are going to know about this, but our summertime annual ask that we do for operating fund data, or the data that's used for calculating the operating fund. As you all who've been in the program this last year know, last summer we asked for your FY21 information on rent disregarded related to Jobs Plus so that it could be used and backed out of HUD's calculation of the FY23 operating fund. So again, we'll come back to you all with more data on that, but just an alert that that's something we'll talk about in that super call in June as well. The good news there, as you may remember, is now that you all have that JPEID tool, you're able to literally go in and click a button, pick the right time frame and click a button to run that report. So again, trying to make that a much more automatic process now that you all have those JPEID tools in hand. Everyone should be fully resolved at that point come this summer, and just an alert that in our data reporting efforts will be coming along as well. And I think the one other thing, Laura, I was going to just pose is, there also was a question about the 930 data. Just for awareness, it may be that that there may be a question or two in terms of final QC on that data. So just be aware there is a possibility that ICF staff may need to come and ask you a question about the final QC of that September 2022 data. But Laura, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Lee. And with that, we have a good 15 minutes left to address any questions you have. So let's move into the Q&A portion of the call. And I know folks have been great about asking questions throughout. You are welcome to continue to enter your questions into the chat, or and in addition, our host is going to upgrade you all. So what that means is you will be able to unmute yourself and ask your question verbally if you would like. A reminder that this will allow you to unmute yourself. It will also allow you to turn on your camera if you wish. So just be aware that you have that ability, and make sure you know whether your camera is on or off. So I see folks are getting moved into the ability to do that. So with that, please feel free to come off of mute and ask a question verbally, or continue to type your questions in the chat. So I see one from Pashana about looking at the Monroe housing worksheet. I suspect you're referring to the JPEID tool to see if it's been corrected. That is one that we are actively working on to really make sure we can get you guys squared away. So we'll continue to be working on that and be in touch with you guys on that. So thank you for asking, and thank you for your patience as we've been working our way through that one. Other questions from anybody, either verbally or in the chat? Well, it looks like we've got some folks who are unable to unmute, particularly Suzette. If you can see your the list of participants on the side, you should have a little red microphone with a slash through it, and if you click that, it should turn green. Or at the bottom of your screen, I believe there is a unmute function at the very bottom. You can choose that. It sounds like hopefully we can get you able to do that so that you can ask your question.
Thank you. It did work. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, Suzette, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate my question again. I want to make sure I'm clear on how you explained it about access to Q3 of 2022 report. So are we sending an email to jobsplusreporting@icf.com to request that, or how can I access that report?
So if you're looking to access the actual data that you submitted, we can provide that to you. Also, once you do receive I suspect that you're looking for that data so that it can help you in submitting your, next quarter.
Correct.
We can provide that to you. So if that would be helpful, send us an email, and we can provide that.
Thank you very much.
In the future, you'll have, full access to the Tableau dashboard, and your data would be available, any past data at any point would be available to you there.
Great. Thank you, Laura.
No worries. Thank you, Suzette. And I see a question from Samantha. Yes, so we are working on your JPEID tool as well. So I know, yes, you have not entered your Q1 or Q2 data there. And we'll continue to work with you, and we can connect with your grant manager to see, what's possible in terms of your data submission.
One thing to keep in mind too, and we were doing this prior to the transition with ICF, is every now and there might be an instance where like one data point is missing for a particular reason, whether it has to do with JPEID or something else. We also were trying to move towards a place where grantees would still submit and maybe flag that kind of unique issue, and that's something that then we can just fill in if needed, if relevant, during, say, the QC process. But all the other data, we still want folks to go ahead and work on, getting that together, typing it in, and it might be in the unusual, the every now and then circumstance where there is sort of an unusual situation where a piece of data isn't available. And that's where we can connect and see, like, go ahead and submit and we'll fill it in the next week or something like that. But on the whole, we should still be able to move ahead with the other data points.
Any other questions? So a reminder to you that this session, as well as the JPEID tool session recordings, will be available to you. And so you'll be able to rewatch those, or, make sure that any colleagues that were not able to attend are able to get that information. Other questions? Well, if after, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ruth.
Oh, no, I was just going to, if there aren't any other questions, just want to again thank everyone for all your work on this. As you all know this from all the programs you work with, whether it's Jobs Plus or something else. But we really appreciate all the work and effort and due diligence around the data, because as you know, when we have to report about how great Jobs Plus is, we have to be able to point to the data. It's sort of the key lifeblood in the program. So we really appreciate your dedication to it, and that it helps you all actually run the program. So thanks in advance for working with us and for the work to get that data entered in from the last 2 quarters. And we're really excited to be, starting this path again and to have ICF with us. And just again, thank you all for all the work that you do every day to help the residents in the Jobs Plus program.
One more question, please. I'm sorry. When will the link for the new report be sent out?
So my hope is that we can get that out to you before the end of the week, which is tomorrow. So we will, I think our plan is to send that link to the Jobs Plus coordinator that we have on file for each of the agencies. But if it needs to go to somebody else, let us know. And we can work with you to make sure it gets in the right hands for the one person whose job it is to fill out and submit that to. And I see a question again. Yeah, this video is not posted yet, but it will be. And once it is available, we will send a link out to you guys so you can have the link. it will be posted on, it'll be available on YouTube, but it will be kind of more accessibly available on the HUD Exchange, and there will be a direct link, and we will provide that to you. Well, with that, it sounds like we can wrap things up. Again, I'm on behalf of the ICF, the whole ICF team, I'm really looking forward to working with you guys, and thanks to everybody for taking the time out of your day to get this information and get started with reporting. Thank you, everybody, again, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.